Captain Daniel Hudson stood at the main viewport of the UES constellation, his eyes fixed on the swirling purple and blue gases of the Carina Nebula. After 20 years in space, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Captain, you need to see this," Laura Bennett called from her science station. Her voice had an edge he had never heard before. In 15 years of working together, she had always been calm, even when facing danger. Hudson walked to her station, his boots making soft sounds on the polished deck. The main screen showed something that shouldn't be there, a massive structure floating in the nebula's heart. "How big is it?" he asked, leaning closer to the screen. 300 kilometers long, sir, and it's artificial." Laura's fingers moved quickly over her console, bringing up more data. "The energy readings are unlike anything in our database." The bridge crew fell silent. They were supposed to be here for a routine survey mission. Instead, they had found something that would change human history forever. "Get me a close-up view," Hudson ordered. The main screen shifted, showing details of the structure. It looked like a giant arrow, pointing into deep space. Its surface was covered in strange patterns that seemed to glow with a faint blue light. Lieutenant Commander Peter Martinez spoke up from his tactical station. "Sir, should I alert the rest of the fleet?" "Yes. Tell them to maintain distance but stay ready." Hudson turned to his communications officer. "Amy Collins, send a message to Earth Command. Mark it Priority 1. The massive structure hung in space like a sleeping giant. As they watched, small lights began to flicker across its surface. "Captain," Laura called out again, her voice tense. "I'm detecting power signatures. They're growing stronger." Hudson straightened his uniform. "Looks like we woke something up. Martinez, get your team ready for reconnaissance. I want to know what we're dealing with." Within an hour, the rest of the human fleet had arrived. 14 ships, the best Earth had to offer, formed a protective circle around the constellation. The sight would have been impressive to any observer, humanity's finest achievement in space exploration. But compared to the ancient structure before them, their ships looked like toys. Martinez led his team to the shuttle bay. They wore the latest in space exploration suits, each one worth more than a small city. The team included specialists in various fields: science, engineering, and security. "Remember," Hudson's voice came through their comm systems, "we're making history here. First contact protocols are in effect. No unnecessary risks." The shuttle launched smoothly from the constellation. As it flew toward the structure, the team got their first close look at its surface. What had appeared as simple patterns from far away were actually writings or symbols, carved into the metal itself. "This is amazing," one of the team members whispered. "Those markings, they must be at least 50,000 years old." Laura's voice came through the comm. "The energy readings are getting stronger. Whatever's in there, it's definitely active now." The shuttle approached what looked like an entrance, a massive door in the structure's side. As they got closer, the door began to open on its own. "Well," Martinez said, trying to keep his voice steady, "looks like someone's expecting us." Inside the structure, they found corridors big enough to fly the shuttle through. The walls were covered in the same glowing symbols they had seen outside. Their lights revealed rooms filled with technology that seemed to defy understanding. "Captain," Martinez reported, "you need to see this. We found what looks like a control room. There's something here, some kind of stasis pods." Hudson's voice was firm. "Do not approach them. Wait for." Before he could finish, one of the pods began to glow. The team watched, weapons ready but not raised, as the pod's surface became transparent. Inside was a figure, clearly not human, but humanoid. Laura's excited voice came through the comm. "Captain, the energy signatures just change. I think we're about to meet the builders." The pod opened with a soft hiss. The figure inside moved slightly, then opened its eyes. They were silver, like liquid metal, and they focused immediately on the human team. After so long, the figure spoke, its voice somehow perfectly understandable. Visitors come at last. Hudson's voice came through the comm again. Martinez, report. What's happening? Martinez watched as the figure slowly sat up, its movements careful and deliberate. Sir, we've just made first contact with what I believe is one of the predecessors, and they can speak our language. The figure stood, towering over them at nearly 8 feet tall. Its skin had a metallic sheen, and what looked like circuits ran just beneath the surface. I am Lara, it said, ambassador of those you would call the predecessors. We have slept for 50,000 years, waiting for a species worthy of our legacy. It looked at each team member in turn. Perhaps you are the ones we have waited for. Hudson's voice was steady when he responded. This is Captain Daniel Hudson of the United Earth Ship Constellation. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you. Lara's silver eyes seemed to glow brighter. Captain Hudson, your arrival has triggered our awakening protocols. More of my people will soon join us. The ambassador paused, looking at something only it could see. But first, there is much you need to know. About why we hide here, about what forced us into this sleep, and about the danger that may soon return. The team members looked at each other, the weight of history pressing down on them. They had come looking for scientific discoveries. Instead, they had found ancient beings with a warning. Martinez keyed his comm. Sir, I think we're going to need the diplomatic team down here. And maybe a historian or two. Agreed, Hudson replied. And Martinez, good work. You've just helped humanity make its biggest discovery yet. In the control room of the ancient station, humans and their unexpected hosts began what would become a conversation that would change the course of both their species. The constellation's lights glinted off the station's surface, a small spark of life in the vast nebula, as humanity took its first steps into a much larger universe than they had imagined. None of them knew yet that they had also started a countdown, one that would force both species to face a threat that had once driven the mighty predecessors into hiding. But for now, in this moment of discovery, hope and wonder outweighed any future concerns. The first chapter of humanity's greatest adventure had begun. Amy Collins had never expected to become humanity's first alien language expert. Yet here she was, standing in what the predecessors called their archive chamber, surrounded by holographic displays that seemed to float in the air like soap bubbles. The patterns are similar to Earth's ancient languages, she explained to Captain Hudson, pointing to the flowing symbols. But they're also mathematical. Each symbol carries multiple layers of meaning. Hudson watched as the symbols danced in the air. And you can understand them. Some of them. It's like they designed their language to be teachable. Amy moved her hand through one of the holograms, and the symbols rearranged themselves. The station's AI is helping me learn. The station's artificial intelligence was another surprise. Unlike Earth's AIs, this one seemed almost alive. It appeared as a shifting pattern of light that could take any form it wanted. Nearby, Chief Engineer Ryan Cooper worked with a group of newly awakened predecessor technicians. Their tall metallic forms made him look small, but he didn't seem to notice. He was too excited about their technology. This is incredible, he said, examining a device that looked like a crystal sphere. They don't just use energy. They shape it, like it's clay in their hands. Ambassador Lara watched the humans work with what seemed like amusement. Your species learns quickly. Most would have needed months to grasp even the basics of our systems. The station had been awakening more predecessors every hour. Each revival pod opened to reveal another member of their ancient civilization. Scientists, engineers, warriors, all of them ready to share their knowledge with humanity. But not everything was going smoothly. Security Officer Nicole Webster noticed the tension first. "Captain," she said quietly, pulling Hudson aside. "Some of the predecessors seem worried. They keep checking their long-range sensors, and they've activated defense systems we didn't even know existed." Hudson frowned. He had noticed it too. Despite their friendly behavior, the predecessors were preparing for something. Like they expected trouble. In the station's main control room, a group of predecessor scientists argued in their native language. The station's AI translated for the humans. The indicators are clear. Too soon. They're not ready. We have no choice. They must be told. Ambassador Xilura silenced them with a gesture. Captain Hudson, there is something you need to know. The reason for our long sleep. The holographic displays change, showing images that made everyone fall silent. Massive ships, black as space itself, moving through the stars like hungry predators. We call them the Devourers, Xilura said. They came from beyond the galaxy's edge. Our civilization was at its peak when we first met them. We thought we were ready for anything. The ambassador's silver eyes dimmed. We were wrong. Amy stepped closer to one of the displays, studying the strange ships. What did they want? Everything. They consumed civilizations, not just their resources, but their knowledge, their technology, their very essence. We fought them for 1,000 years. In the end, we couldn't defeat them. So we hid ourselves, scattered our people across the galaxy, and waited. Hudson understood now. You were waiting for allies, for someone to help you fight back. Xilura nodded. We left beacons, tests. We watched as species rose and fell. None showed the potential we needed. Until now. What makes us different? Ryan asked, looking up from his work. Your adaptability, another predecessor scientist answered. Your species takes ideas and makes them better. You see problems as challenges, not barriers. In the short time you've been here, you've already suggested improvements to systems we thought were perfect. Nicole stepped forward. The defense systems you're activating. You think the Devourers are coming back. The room fell silent again. Xilura moved to a central console, bringing up a new display. It showed something moving at the galaxy's edge, something dark and massive. They never left, the ambassador said. They've been waiting too. And now that we're awake, Xilura turned to face Hudson. Your species has a choice, Captain. You can leave now, return to Earth, prepare your defenses. We would not blame you. Hudson looked around the room. At Amy, still fascinated by the alien language. At Ryan, working side by side with beings from another age. At Nicole, already thinking about security and defense. That's not how humanity works, he said. We don't abandon allies. Not even ones we've just met. A sound filled the room, a musical tone that the humans had never heard before. The predecessors were laughing. This, Xilura said, is exactly why we chose to reveal ourselves to you. The next few hours were a blur of activity. More pods opened, more predecessors awoke. The station hummed with energy as ancient systems came fully online. Ryan worked with the predecessor engineers to understand their weapons technology. Amy and the station's AI raced to translate military and technical terms. Nicole coordinated with both human and predecessor security teams. In the Constellation's ready room, Hudson sent a message to Earth Command. First contact successful. Ancient civilization awakening. Request immediate reinforcements. Possible hostile force approaching. But we've also gained allies with technology beyond our understanding. Humanity is about to face its greatest challenge and its greatest opportunity. As he finished the message, Hudson looked out at the nebula. Somewhere out there, humanity's greatest enemy was waiting. But thanks to those who came before, they wouldn't face that enemy alone. The real question was, would it be enough? Back in the archive chamber, Amy made a discovery that made her blood run cold. She stared at the symbols, hoping she was wrong. Captain, she called over the comm. I found something in their historical records about the Devourers. They're not just coming back. What do you mean? According to this, they never left our galaxy at all. They've been here the whole time, watching, waiting. And now, she swallowed hard. Now they're waking up too. The station's AI confirmed her translation. The race wasn't just beginning. It had already started, and they were 50,000 years behind. The next few days aboard the ancient station were filled with both wonder and worry. Captain Hudson watched as his crew worked alongside the predecessors, learning secrets that humanity had only dreamed about. In the main engineering bay, Ryan Cooper stood next to a predecessor engineer named Ziln. They were studying a holographic display of the station's power core. The device was nothing like Earth's fusion reactors. "So you're telling me," Ryan said, pointing to the swirling energy pattern, "that this core doesn't just make power, it pulls it straight from space itself." Ziln's metallic features shifted in what Ryan had learned was a smile. "Zero-point energy extraction. Your species was close to discovering it. We merely found it first." Nearby, other human engineers watched in amazement as predecessor technicians showed them how to repair quantum circuits with their bare hands. The metal beings could somehow shape energy and matter just by touching them. But not everything was going smoothly. In the station's command center, Nickel Webster noticed something concerning. The predecessors were keeping certain areas of the station locked down. When asked about these areas, they changed the subject. She brought her concerns to Captain Hudson during their daily meeting. "Sir, I think they're hiding something. Something big." Hudson nodded. He had noticed too. "Ambassador Xelera claims it's for our own safety. That some of their technology is too dangerous for us to access yet." "Do you believe that?" Nickel asked. Before Hudson could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and the station's eye appeared as an urgent pulse of light. "Long-range sensors detect movement," the AI announced. "Multiple objects approaching at FTL speeds." Hudson rushed to the command center, with Nickel close behind. They found Ambassador Xelera already there, studying the sensor data. "The Devourers?" Hudson asked. Xelera shook her head. "No, these are different. Smaller ships. We believe they may be scavengers." Amy Collins joined them, her eyes moving quickly over the alien text scrolling across the screens. "They're broadcasting some kind of signal. I think they're pirates. Space pirates." Nickel couldn't hide her surprise. "I thought we were the only ones out here." "The galaxy is vast," Xelera said. "Many species survive by stealing technology they don't understand. They must have detected our awakening." Hudson straightened his uniform. "Then let's show them why that was a mistake. Nickel, get our security teams ready. Ryan, I want full power to defensive systems." The next hour was tense as the unknown ships grew closer. There were 5 of them, each about half the size of the constellation. They moved in an attack formation that made their intentions clear. "They're charging weapons," Nickel reported. Hudson turned to Xelera. "We should combine our forces, show them what humans and predecessors can do together." The ambassador's silver eyes glowed brighter. "Agreed. Zilm, give the humans access to the defense grid." Ryan's voice came over the comm, excited despite the danger. "Captain, you're not going to believe what these weapons can do. The predecessors don't just shoot energy. They bend space itself." The pirate ships came within range and opened fire. Their weapons were advanced, but nothing like what the station could do. Beams of twisted spacetime reached out from the station's defense platforms, catching the enemy shots and turning them back on themselves. "Holy!" Nickel whispered as she watched the battle unfold. The human fleet moved in perfect formation with the station's defenses. They had trained for days with the predecessors for just such an attack. The pirates clearly weren't expecting such coordination between 2 different species. 2 of the pirate ships exploded as their own weapons were turned against them. A third tried to retreat but found itself caught in what Ryan called a space knot, a twist in reality that held the ship in place. The remaining 2 ships surrendered quickly after that. When their leaders were brought aboard the station, they turned out to be a species that looked like walking crystals. They were just as surprised to see humans working with predecessors as the predecessors had been to meet humans. The legends were true. One of the crystal pirates said in a musical voice that the station's AI translated. The sleeping ones have returned, and they have new allies. After the pirates were dealt with, Hudson met with HFY in the station's garden level, a massive space filled with plants from long-dead worlds. That was impressive coordination, HFY said. Your species adapts quickly to new situations. We've had a lot of practice, Hudson replied. Earth's history is full of different cultures learning to work together. Sometimes it takes a common enemy to bring people together. The ambassador was quiet for a moment. There is something you should know, Captain. Those areas of the station we kept locked. They contain weapons. Weapons we swore never to use again. Weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. Hudson felt a chill despite the garden's warm air. Why are you telling me this now? Because you proved something today. When the pirates attacked, your first instinct was to suggest working together. Not to demand our weapons, not to try to take control. You sought partnership. That's how humanity has survived, Hudson said. We learn from each other. We grow stronger together. HFY nodded. The Devourers are coming. We will need every advantage we can get, including those weapons. But first, we needed to know we could trust you with such power. And now? Now we begin the real work, teaching your people everything we know. Because the Devourers won't send 5 ships. They'll send 5,000, and we'll need every trick, every weapon, and every bit of trust between our peoples to survive. As if to emphasize the point, a new alarm sounded. Amy's voice came over the comm, tense but controlled. Captain, we're picking up strange readings from the galactic core. Something's moving out there. Something big. Hudson and HFY shared a look. The real test was about to begin. How long do we have? Hudson asked. If they're moving at their usual speed, HFY's silver eyes dimmed. 2 weeks. Maybe less. 2 weeks to learn the secrets of a civilization that had taken 50,000 years to build. 2 weeks to prepare for an enemy that had driven that same civilization into hiding. Hudson straightened his shoulders. Then we better get to work. Around them, the ancient station hummed with power as more systems came online. In the labs and workshops, humans and predecessors worked side by side, sharing knowledge that would soon be tested in the crucible of war. The clock was ticking, but at least now, they faced it together. Lieutenant William Baker had seen a lot of strange things during his time in space, but nothing like this. He stood in a vast chamber deep within the station, surrounded by weapons that shouldn't exist. Devices that could tear holes in space, bombs that could make stars go dark, things that looked more like art than weapons. These are what you used against the Devourers. He asked the predecessor weapons master, a tall being named Krell. Some of them, Krell replied. Others we never dared to use. Even in our darkest hours, some lines we would not cross. The weapons master pointed to a small pyramid floating in a force field. This one, for example, it creates a bubble of stopped time. Anything caught inside simply ceases to exist. We built only one. The cost was too high. The cost. It killed its creators. Just being near it while it was made caused them to age years in minutes, but they finished it anyway. That's how desperate we were. Will felt a chill run down his spine. He keyed his comm unit. Captain Hudson, I think you need to see this. In another part of the station, Christopher Mills worked with the station's AI to analyze tactical data. As strategic operations officer, it was his job to find patterns, to predict what the enemy might do. The Devourers' attack patterns make no sense, he said, staring at the holographic display. Look at these historical records. Sometimes they hit hard and fast. Other times they wait, watching for years before striking. There's no logic to it. The AI's voice was calm. Perhaps you are looking for the wrong kind of logic. The Devourers do not think as you do. They do not think as we do. They are different. Different how? Before the AI could answer, Ambassador Xelura entered the room. They think like a hunger thinks, like gravity thinks. They do not plan. They simply are. The ambassador waved a hand, and new images appeared in the air. They showed massive black ships breaking apart planets, draining stars of energy, consuming everything in their path. We tried to understand them, Xelura said. We thought if we could learn their motives, we could find a way to stop them. But they have only one motive: to consume, to take everything that exists and make it part of themselves. Chris studied the images carefully. But they do have weaknesses. You hurt them during your war. How? By surprising them. They learn and adapt quickly, but they cannot predict what they have never seen before. Xelura's silver eyes fixed on Chris. That is why your species gives us hope. You think differently than we do. You find solutions we would never consider. In the engineering section, Ryan Cooper made a discovery that changed everything. He had been working with Ziln to understand the station's quantum circuits when he noticed something odd. These power readings, he said, pointing to a display. They're not just energy signatures. They're like echoes. Ziln moved closer to look. Echoes of what? Of other stations. Your people didn't build just one of these, did you? There are more out there, sleeping like this one was. The predecessor engineer was quiet for a long moment. There were 12 stations. We lost contact with the others when we went into stasis. We assumed they were destroyed. Ryan shook his head. These readings are active, recent. Some of your people are already awake out there. They're just hiding it really well. The news spread quickly through the station. Captain Hudson called an emergency meeting in the command center. Humans and predecessors gathered around the main tactical display. If there are other stations, Hudson said, we need to find them. Unite our forces before the Devourers arrive. Ambassador Xelura seemed troubled. If they are awake, why haven't they contacted us? What could make them stay hidden even now? Nickel Webster, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Maybe they found something. Something so dangerous they're afraid to reach out. Or maybe, Amy Collins added, looking up from her translation work, they're not alone out there. Maybe they found other allies, like we found each other. The discussion was interrupted by a new alarm. Lieutenant Baker's voice came over the comm, tense and urgent. Captain, the weapons vault. Something's happening. The temporal pyramid, it's activating on its own. Hudson turned to Xelura. Is that possible? The ambassador was already moving. No. Those weapons require specific genetic keys to activate. Unless what? Unless they're responding to something. Something they were designed to detect. The ambassador's voice grew quiet. The pyramid was built for one purpose: to sense when the Devourers began their final approach. The station's eye appeared, its form shifting rapidly between shapes. Long-range sensors detecting multiple anomalies. Quantum disruptions consistent with large-scale FTL transit. Estimated arrival time: 7 days. Hudson looked around the room, at the faces of both his crew and their alien allies. They had hoped for more time, but hope wasn't a strategy. 7 days, he said. To find the other stations, to understand weapons that can break the laws of physics, to prepare for an enemy that even the predecessors couldn't defeat. Xelura stepped forward. Captain, there is something else you should know. Something we discovered in the First War. The Devourers, they were like us once. A species that grew too powerful, that went too far in their quest for advancement. What we face is not just an enemy. It is a warning of what we could become. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove that advancement didn't have to mean destruction, that different species could work together without losing themselves. Ryan's voice broke the silence. Then we better make these 7 days count. Around them, the ancient station hummed with power. In the weapons vault, the temporal pyramid pulsed with dark energy. And somewhere in the void between stars, something vast and hungry turned its attention toward them. The real war was about to begin, and this time it would not end in hiding. 5 days remained until the Devourers would arrive. The ancient station buzzed with activity as humans and predecessors worked together, preparing for the battle that would decide both their fates. In the command center, Amy Collins stared at her screen with wide eyes. "Captain Hudson, I found something in the communication records, a signal hidden in background radiation." Hudson rushed to her station, Ambassador Xelara close behind. The signal was weak, barely there at all, but it was definitely artificial. "It's from another station," Amy said, her fingers flying over the controls. "They're using an old predecessor code, buried so deep most scanners would miss it." Xelara's silver eyes glowed brighter. "Can you decode it?" Amy nodded. "Working on it now. It's a warning. They say the Devourers have changed, evolved. The weapons we used before won't work the same way again." Hudson felt his stomach tighten. "Where is this signal coming from?" "The Horsehead Nebula," Amy replied. "About 3 light years from here." "That's Station 7, Xelara said quietly. "We thought it was destroyed 50,000 years ago. If they've been watching the Devourers all this time." In the engineering bay, Ryan Cooper and Zilm made their own discovery. They had been studying the station's quantum defense systems when Ryan noticed something odd. "Look at this power flow," he said, pointing to a diagram. "We've been thinking about energy all wrong. We don't need to make our weapons stronger. We need to make them smarter." Zilm's metallic features shifted in confusion. "Explain." "The Devourers adapt to whatever hits them, right? So instead of hitting them harder, we hit them differently every time. Keep changing the rules of the game." The predecessor engineer caught on quickly. "Like your Earth saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight." "Exactly," Ryan grinned. "Except we bring a knife, then a gun, then a bomb, then something they've never seen before. Never the same thing twice." The idea spread through the station like wildfire. Soon, every workshop and lab was focused on creating weapons that could change their nature mid-fight. Human creativity combined with predecessor technology in ways neither species had imagined before. But not everyone was convinced. Lieutenant William Baker found Nicole Webster in the weapons vault, studying the temporal pyramid. "We're missing something," she said without looking up. "The predecessors built all these superweapons, but they still lost. Why?" Will walked around the floating pyramid. "Maybe they were too careful, too afraid of what their weapons might do. Or maybe," Nicole's eyes widened, "maybe the weapons worked exactly as intended. Maybe the predecessors didn't lose. They sacrificed themselves to buy time. Time for someone else to find a better way." In the tactical center, Christopher Mills worked with the station's AI to develop new battle strategies. The holographic display showed hundreds of possible scenarios, each one ending in defeat. "There has to be a way," Chris muttered, running another simulation. The AI's voice was thoughtful. "Perhaps we are approaching this incorrectly. The Devourers expect us to defend. What if we do not?" "You mean let them attack?" "No, I mean we attack first, before they fully arrive, while they are still in transit." Chris sat up straighter. "Can we do that? Hit them while they're in FTL? With conventional weapons?" "No, but we have something they have never encountered before. Human unpredictability combined with predecessor technology." The plan came together quickly after that. Instead of waiting for the Devourers to arrive, they would strike at the space between spaces, where the massive ships traveled through FTL. It was dangerous, maybe even suicide, but it was also something the enemy would never expect. Captain Hudson called a final meeting in the station's Great Hall. Hundreds of humans and predecessors gathered to hear the plan. "What we're attempting has never been done before," he told them. "We're going to punch a hole in reality itself. Use the temporal pyramid to create a bubble of normal space inside the FTL corridor. When the Devourers pass through, they'll be forced back into normal space," Ambassador Xelara continued. "Scattered, vulnerable. For a few precious moments, they'll be fighting in two different realities at once. And that's when we hit them, Ryan added. With everything we've got. Every weapon, every trick, every crazy idea we can think of. The room was quiet as everyone considered what they were about to attempt. The risks were enormous. If they failed, they wouldn't just die. They might tear a hole in space-time itself. But the alternative was worse. The Devourers would consume everything, not just their lives, but their entire civilization. Everything they had ever built or dreamed of would become food for the endless hunger. The station's eye appeared. Its form, a swirling galaxy of light. New signal detected. Station 7 is transmitting again. They are offering to help. They say they have been preparing for this moment for 50,000 years. Amy quickly translated the new message. They'd been studying the Devourers all this time, learning their weaknesses. They say they found a way to poison them, to turn their hunger against them. Hudson turned to Xilera. Can we trust them? The ambassador's silver eyes were determined. We have no choice. But they are our people. They would not have waited 50,000 years just to fail now. The next hours were a blur of activity. The station's engines powered up to levels they hadn't reached in millennia. The temporal pyramid pulsed with dark energy, ready to tear a hole in reality itself. In space around the station, the human fleet took up their positions. 14 ships, now equipped with modified predecessor technology, prepared for a battle unlike any in human history. 3 hours until Devourer contact, the AI announced. Hudson stood at the main viewport, watching his fleet move into position. Behind him, humans and predecessors worked together at their stations, each one ready to play their part in what might be the most important battle in galactic history. 50,000 years, he said quietly. Your people waited 50,000 years for this moment. Xilera stood beside him, and in less than 7 days, your people have given us something we never had before. What's that? Hope. The ambassador's voice was firm. We had weapons. We had technology. But you gave us new ways to use them. New ways to think. New ways to fight. The station's alarms began to sound. Out in the darkness between stars, reality itself began to twist as the Devourers approached. The final battle was about to begin. Space twisted and bent as the Devourer fleet approached. Their ships were massive black shapes that seemed to swallow light itself. The station's sensors counted over 3,000 vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Temporal pyramid at full power, Lieutenant Baker reported from the weapons vault, ready to create the reality bubble. Captain Hudson stood at the command center, surrounded by both human and predecessor crew members. Status report. Station 7's poison is ready, Amy Collins said. They're transmitting the delivery protocols now. Defense grid online, Nicole Webster added. All weapons showing green. Human fleet in position, Chris Mills reported. All ships reporting ready. Ambassador Xilera's silver eyes were fixed on the main display. They're entering the FTL corridor now. We'll only have one chance at this. Hudson took a deep breath. Send the signal to Station 7. Tell them we're ready. Ryan, start the sequence. Down in engineering, Ryan Cooper and Zilm began the most dangerous experiment in human history. The temporal pyramid's energy fed into the station's main reactors, creating a cascade of power that would tear a hole in space itself. Power levels rising, Ryan reported. 30%, 50%, 70%. The station began to vibrate as reality around them grew thin. Through the viewports, they could see space beginning to ripple like water. 90%, Ryan called. We're almost. Before he could finish, the first Devourer ship hit their trap. The bubble of normal space appeared inside the FTL corridor, like a soap bubble in a stream. The massive black ship slammed into it at faster than light speed. The result was beyond anything they had expected. The Devourer ship didn't just stop. It shattered into pieces, each fragment caught between normal space and FTL. Behind it, More ships hit the bubble, creating a massive pileup in the corridor. "Now," Hudson ordered, "hit them with everything." The human fleet opened fire with their modified weapons. Each ship used something different: quantum torpedoes, reality-twisting beams, weapons that shouldn't exist. Just as Ryan had suggested, they never used the same attack twice. The Devourers tried to adapt, but they couldn't counter so many different threats at once. Their ships began to break apart under the assault. But the enemy wasn't defeated yet. The remaining Devourer ships began to change shape, merging together into larger forms. What had been 3,000 ships was becoming 100 massive creatures of living metal. "They're adapting faster than we predicted," Xelera warned. "The temporal bubble won't hold them much longer." That's when Station 7 made its move. A beam of golden light shot across space, hitting the largest Devourer formation. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Amy's console lit up with data. "It's working. The poison. It's not really a poison. It's a virus. It's making them hungry for each other." They watched in amazement as the Devourer ships began to turn on each other. The hunger that drove them to consume other civilizations was now directed at their own kind. "Keep firing," Hudson ordered. "Don't let them realize what's happening." The battle raged for hours. The human fleet and the station kept up their random attacks, while the Devourers tore themselves apart from within. But victory came at a heavy cost. 3 human ships were destroyed. Parts of the station were heavily damaged. The temporal pyramid was burning itself out, its creator's sacrifice finally complete. In engineering, Ryan and Zilm fought to keep the station's power grid from collapsing. They worked side by side, human and predecessor moving like they'd been partners for years instead of days. "The reactor can't take much more," Ryan warned. Zilm's metallic hands moved across the controls. "It doesn't need to." Look, on the main display, they could see the Devourers' formations breaking apart. The few ships that remained were no longer attacking. They were fleeing. "Did we just?" Nicole stared at her tactical screen. "Did we just win?" "Not just win," Ambassador Xelera said quietly. "We did what neither of our species could do alone. We proved that there's something stronger than hunger, stronger than the need to consume and destroy." Hudson looked around the command center, at humans and predecessors working together. "Unity," he said, "the ability to work together, to combine our strengths and cover each other's weaknesses." A station's eye appeared, its form now a blend of human and predecessor symbols. Long-range sensors detect no further Devourer signatures within scanning range. However, readings suggest some may have survived. They will return, eventually. "Let them," Chris said firmly. "We'll be ready. And next time, we'll have even more surprises for them." Amy's console beeped with a new signal. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from everywhere. More stations are waking up. They saw what we did. They want to join us." Hudson turned to Xelera. "Looks like your people won't have to hide anymore." The ambassador's silver eyes shone with an emotion that needed no translation. "No, now we can build something new. Together." In the days that followed, more predecessor stations revealed themselves. Some had found other alien allies, just as the first station had found humanity. Each brought new ideas, new technologies, new ways of thinking. Ryan's idea about constantly changing tactics became the foundation of a new defense strategy. The temporal pyramid's remains were studied to create new, safer ways of manipulating spacetime. Station 7's poison was refined into a weapon that could be used against any force that threatened galactic peace. But more importantly, the alliance between humans and predecessors showed the galaxy something new. Different species could work together without losing their identity. They could combine their strengths without sacrificing what made them unique. 1 month after the battle, Captain Hudson stood in the station's garden level with Ambassador Xelera, looking out at the stars. "Your people waited 50,000 years to find the right allies," he said. "Was it worth it?" Celera watched a group of human and predecessor children playing together near a fountain. The station had become home to families now, the first of many mixed communities. "We didn't just find allies," the ambassador replied. "We found hope. Your species showed us that we don't have to choose between advancement and wisdom. We can have both. We can be both." Above them, construction crews were repairing the station's battle damage. Human engineering teams worked alongside predecessor architects, combining their styles into something new and beautiful. The Devourers would return someday, but when they did, they wouldn't find isolated civilizations waiting to be consumed. They would find a galaxy united, ready to face any threat together. Those who came before had found their successors, and humanity had found its place among the stars.